That's about it.
More important than quorum. Okay. No. We have quorum. If everyone could just grab their seats and we'll get started. Welcome everyone to, I'll call meeting number 2006 of the Toronto Transit Commission to order. I know Vice Chair Heisey always likes that. I'll note, well, I don't see her in the room right now, we earlier today in our public session welcomed Councillor Mary Fragadakis as our new commissioner, so she'll be joining us today. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? None. Could I have Vice Chair Heisey move the minutes of the previous meeting? All in favor? No opposed? That carries. Thank you. We'll go through the agenda. There's one item that has been asked to be added, and so we will do that. So I will hold number 1, and number 2, and number 3. Number 4 we dealt with in camera. Can I have someone move the actions taken in camera? Moved by Commissioner Lalonde. All in favor? No opposed. That carries. Number 5, the 2016 TTC capital budget in-year technical adjustment. Moved by Commissioner Mihevc. All in favor? That carries. Item number 6, property tax exemption, municipal capital facilities designation. Commissioner Mihevc is moving staff recommendations. All in favor? No opposed. That carries. Number 7, procurement authorization, Humber Loop Traction Power Substation. Moved by Commissioner Campbell, and with recognizing that this does not impact whatsoever in local councillor Grimes' visions of what we're going to be doing with the Humber Loop. All in favor? It is going to be opposed. None. That carries. We have correspondence items that have been added by Councillor Ainsley. We do have a deputant listed for those, Miroslav Glavic. I don't see him here, but we'll have to hold those until we get to them, which may be quite quickly. Number 10, there's a presentation, so we'll hold that. Added as number 11 will be the request to have Commissioner De Laurentiis added to the TTC HR committee. Can I have a motion to add that item to the agenda? You should vote for that one. Yeah. All in favor? On the motion itself, does anyone want to hold or just vote on it? Move to adopt by Commissioner Min and Wong. All in favor? That carries. So we go back to item number 1, which is adding to our trophy case that I'm hoping we'll soon have to expand because we've been on a good run, and so it's a credit to the women and men who work at the TTC, but we are going to have the good fortune and the honor of accepting an award as one of Canada's top 100 employers from the GTA. I'm certainly pleased to announce that we've been recognized as a top employer through the Canada's Top 100 program presented by MediaCorp Canada. The TTC is honored to receive this award and was evaluated using 8 criteria: the physical workplace, work atmosphere, health, financial and family benefits, vacation and time off, employee communications, performance management, training and skills development, community involvement, and certainly this does not apply to board members, I see, but I'm glad to hear that our employees recognize that. The TTC obviously has received this award in part for many reasons that I just mentioned, but also things like, just to mention a few specifics, ongoing employee development, including tuition subsidies for courses both related to employees' current position and advancing their careers, additions and contributions to the defined benefit pension plan, and obviously our award we received before with our great efforts made at our diversity and inclusion plans that I think have started to yield the results we've desired. So with that, I'll call on Andy and Gemma and Sarah. I think they're all here, and I guess I'm presenting this to us. Yeah. Any club that would have me as a member. With that, Commissioner DeMaremaker will proudly move to receive that item for information. All in favor? And that carries. That moves us to item number 2, the CEO's report. We'll hand it to our CEO to touch on some highlights, and then from there go for 2 questions.
Great stuff. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will keep this brief so that gives Commissioners plenty of time to ask us questions. And largely, as ever, the report hopefully speaks for itself. The commentary is really contains the points that I would wish to make, but I'm just going to highlight a few. So this report, as the commentary says, covers us to the end of November 2016, but it also includes detail about the year-end ridership figure, which ended on 538 million. You'll see from the commentary that I've given that I have really set out 3 main priorities for this year, 2017, going forward. They are, in addition to the ongoing push on what I call basics, so the ongoing basics of providing ever better customer service, punctuality, reliability, and safety. That is a given, and my team know very clearly that is on a par with the 3 priorities that I've set. Those 3 priorities being to get the Spadina extension open by the end of the year, which is going to happen, and that Spadina extension clearly needs a signalling system, so that goes in parallel, that we must get ATC up and running. ATC will go live in the fall, but that needs to be preceded by an extensive testing program, and that we're going to be talking about actually in the next item when we talk about the closures, because this coming weekend coming up, the 20th, 21st, is a critical go, no-go weekend for us really on the first live testing of that signalling system, albeit without passengers riding the trains. So we'll let you know how that goes. So that's the first priority, TYSSE stroke ATC. The second one will be Presto, that although we met the year-end target of having every station fitted with at least one Presto-enabled entrance, and we met the target, which was a Herculean effort actually to have all vehicles fitted. Clearly we've got to now finish the job off, get the equipment working reliably, get the remaining entrances, the secondary exit entrances fitted, get the additional machines fitted by Metrolinx, retrofit the 26 stations that have got legacy gates and put in the paddle gates into those, and ultimately get our collectors out of the booths, phase out tickets, tokens, and paper transfer. So that's another priority. And then the final priority, in amongst a myriad of other things to do, will be to push on with the streetcar delivery. We did hit that year-end target, albeit revised, of 30. We were promised 30, and we got 30 streetcars on property. And we now expect we're going to hold Bombardier to a minimum of an additional 40 for a cumulative 70 by year end. I'm pushing for higher than that. But I'd like to keep you posted as to whether or not that's achievable. Just one other comment, largely because it was topical. I was asked about it on CBC the other day, on Metro Morning. You'll notice the mean distance between failure statistic for the new streetcars is low. Don't be unduly concerned concerned about that for two reasons. Number one, because the divisor is very small. There's only 30 vehicles in service, so therefore only a few failures can suppress that mean distance between failure. You really need to have a fleet of at least 60 in order for that figure to be meaningful. And secondly, because where people may have got the impression that that means the streetcar every sort of 3,000 kilometers is actually breaks down and people are inconvenienced. That's not what it's saying. On very rare occasions, we've had to take the vehicle out of service, but we capture every service-affecting delay of 5 minutes or more. So even if it's just sticky doors and we get them fixed in service, that counts towards a failure. And that's important, and we do that deliberately because there's a performance regime with Metrolinx that we're not going to let them off the hook on because that is a means of making sure they address reliability. The same thing happened with Toronto Rockets. If you recall, we had a lot of problems with door reliability to begin with. Have a look at the MDBF on Rockets. It fluctuates a little bit, but they're a very well-performing train. So I think those are the headlines, Mr. Chair. Look forward to your questions, which I will either take myself or ask one of my chiefs to answer.
Okay, questions start with Commissioner Campbell, then we'll go to Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In regard to delay incidents, I just want to follow up on the discussion we had at lunch. So this would be on page 27 of the report. You comment that the largest increase was in the number of passenger-related security incidents. So how many of those, what percentage of delays are caused by passengers?
So I'm going to ask the crew to talk to the detail, but I think I'm right in saying it's around 25% of our delays have some linkage to passenger-related incidents, but I'll ask Mike, the COO, to comment further.
Through the chair, sir, in period 11 there were 1,678 incidents across the lines, totaling. Sorry, I'll start that again. In the final quarter of the year, which includes P11, we actually had 8,304 minutes of delay on YUS, almost 8,500 on BD, and a very small amount on the other two lines, 17,617 minutes of delay in the fourth quarter, which would include periods 10, 11 and 12. In terms of the number of incidents, we had a total of 19,000 incidents in the third quarter. It includes sexual assault, fights, medical assistance, EAs, trespass. We had 3 priority ones.
What's a priority one is attempted suicide or attempted suicide? Or?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what percentage of the delays, the numbers of delays, are caused by passengers, are passenger triggered?
If you take YUS as an example, in the fourth, in the total year 2015 versus 2016, we had 15,000 minutes of delay on YUS, and the passenger action of those was 8,300, so almost half, and the same on BD, and about a quarter on Shepherd, and about a tenth on SRT.
Right, so let me redirect it toward the CEO. So, given the high, are lives saved by having this mechanism on the trains? Given that every stop is only a minute or 2 minutes away, or do we know that lives are saved by having this? And are we legally required to have the alarm system on the trains?
I'll seek the counsel of my colleagues, but I'm pretty certain in Canada that you have to have an alarm on a train, an emergency alarm. So, in some cases, arguably...
I'd like to know the answer.
So I'd say, yeah, so we can confirm that to you. I would absolutely say, with certainty, over the past 5 years, lives have been saved because an alarm has been pressed legitimately, and that has resulted in emergency services being sent to the location in order to save someone's life. But the real challenge, and this is why we renamed the alarm from the passenger assistance alarm, which was a complete misnomer and was regularly abused, to the emergency alarm, the real issue is even then, I think some of them are still spuriously pressed or unnecessarily pressed, which is why we continue with our campaign to say, if you, for example, feel faint, don't press the alarm, get off, and we will provide
So
assistance.
Andy, like, delay incidents and minutes is one of the metrics by which you measure the TTC's performance.
Yeah.
Should you not, or could you not consider delving down a little bit more and putting a metric that shows how many are passenger-related, and the concern is the unnecessary passenger-related ones, so that you work toward reducing that number?
Right, so we do work toward reducing that number, and I mean, at the end of the day, you're my board, you can ask for whatever data you want, but this is meant to be a high-level scorecard.
Right.
Rest assured, beneath each of these measures, there are numerous input KPIs. These are output KPIs. We track every subset of each of these KPIs in infinite detail, actually. So Jim and his team will look at not only the number of, say, medical emergencies, we will look at whether the person ended up going to hospital or whether they declined assistance. We have a look to see where the incidents occur, what time of day the incidents occur. We look at trespass incidents, what time they occur and where they occur. All of this is tracked to minute detail, actually.
Okay, now I want to just switch gears a bit and talk about Presto, because again today I get on my bus, and the reader at the front of the bus is not working. The one at the rear of the bus was working, and when this happens anecdotally so often, I'm unconvinced that it's a small problem. It has to be a bigger problem, and we have to be losing money. And so I'd like to know, how closely and carefully we're examining it and what's being done to correct it. I did a tweet yesterday, and some guy says, "Oh, it's the same thing on the new streetcars."
So we are examining it and tracking it closely, and in terms of doing something to correct it, we meet with Metrolinx. I meet with them every 4 weeks, and it is the number one item on the agenda, and we have worked with them to have various patches installed to tackle the software problems that seem to be causing this. For the detail, I'll ask Chris, who manages the Presto contract, to comment in further detail, please.
So it is a significant problem, we know that, but we also know it's getting less. So new occurrences of readers failing are less than 1% a day. So that's kind of our first target. The ultimate target is less than 0.01%. What we're trying to do now is get around the bus divisions and the streetcar divisions to start to drain the number of failures, fix the second line maintenance failures that we know we have, to return those to service. So we are now on top of this, and we're trying to fix all the other stuff that has happened over the last 2 months.
Is it the same common problem that's sort of betraying the reliability of these things? Or are there a number of problems?
There are a number of problems. They're complex system. It interacts with the GPS. It interacts with the cellular modem on the bus to communicate data back. It's some of the hardware. It's some of the switches that talk between those things. One of the biggest failures you had was actually some corruption on the SD card, the memory card that is part of these devices. Those have all now been replaced, which is getting us to that lower failure rate that now we've got to go around and update all of the readers. We don't. Presto have to go around and update all the readers.
I imagine my 5 minutes is up.
Yes, the clocks aren't working, but they are, but I'll circle back to you if you have other questions. So we'll move to Commissioner Mihevik now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just working on that, I was very interested in an article in the Star, working off on top of the issue of the failure rate of Presto. And we have, according to this article, we have it down to the percentage, the failure of the gates, the crash gates, I guess you call them, the translucent gates at the TTC station. And it was something like 18%, and it went down to 12%, and obviously we're going to trend that in a positive direction. So I know you folks are data obsessed, and you're good at collecting that. So my interest, knowing that Presto, maybe it is 1%. I'll take your word that it is 1% anecdotally. Like every time someone finds out I'm on the TTC, they hammer me around Presto. Do we have data month by month on the failure of Presto to collect the fare?
We do. Let me just break that out a bit. So the 1%, less than 1%, is new failures on a reader on a bus or a streetcar. So every day we have 1% or about of 4,000 readers go wrong. We have a backlog of stuff that we're trying to fix that takes us up more into the 6% range because we're trying to fix that, but new failures are around 1%. And just to be clear, the gates The TTC owns the gates. Presto doesn't really have anything to do with the gates.
This isn't about gates.
That's
This
right.
is not about gates.
Okay.
So if our rate this month, all in, is 6%, what was the stat, say, for the last 6 months?
It has, we do have those statistics on even a weekly basis or
Oh, great,
or-
great. So
or a
you
daily
have
basis.
them.
We have those statistics.
Okay, so if it is, just for the sake of an argument, 6% of this month's Presto cards have not collected the right amount, and if we are at 5% switch over from the traditional legacy system to the Presto system, then you actually have a very precise mathematical calculation that you're able to do that says how much we're losing on a day-by-day or week-by-week basis due to the failures of Presto. Would that be fair to say?
It's harder than that because a failure of that 6% or whatever the number is, there might be another reader still working on that streetcar. So it's not just the 5% of the 6%. A streetcar has 8 readers. So it's which doors they're getting on. A bus that is in a station like Bathurst or St. Clair, they don't have to tap on that reader because they've already entered that station, so they've tapped in another way. We have done some detailed work on how much we think this is costing the TTC, and we are having discussions with Metrolinx about their responsibility for those monies.
So I guess you're using some algorithms?
That's right.
And some
We're using some sensitivities, and we're making some assumptions to
so
figure
on.
out what this is
So
costing.
you would be able to report back to us, because at the end of the day, frankly, my interest as a board person and as a city councillor is that we're held harmless on this. Because, when you start to add up the numbers, we're not talking a few dollars here, and we need every penny directed towards public transit. Will you be reporting out on what that trend line is and how much at the end of the day, what our bill will be to Metrolinx once we get down to that 0.01 failure rate?
Yes, we can do that. So the contract specifies that if there was a loss of greater than $30,000 in any quarter, that's the materiality level we set in the contract, then
$30,000.
Metrolinx is responsible for that.
And you're able to report back
We are
what
able to
our
report-
best numbers?
Yes.
Are you planning to do that?
I certainly can. I think there's still joint work to do for everybody to come to agree that some of those assumptions we're making are right, to work through that. But absolutely, we can report back on the assurance that the TTC is being held whole for this.
Okay, I'll speak to that in a sec. Can I ask another set of
Yep,
questions, or
go
do you
ahead.
want to go around?
Why don't we go around, just if it's a different topic? Other questions? Vice Chair Heisey?
First question, employee absence. I guess the question is, why is it so dramatically different from target over this period of time? I noticed the target's 6.5, and we were as high as 8 days absence per employee. Any comments on that?
Sure. I might kick off, and then maybe Gemma and Megan might like to reply, although it's a team effort, right? I mean, my chiefs each have targets. They're expected to hold their people to account and to manage attendance accordingly. But same as any other transit system, it's an ongoing battle. Our percentage figure is actually slightly better than the public sector average.
Okay.
And what is hammering us at the moment, among other things, is the number of Priority 1 suicides that we've experienced. Because if in a Priority 1 you can lose for potentially weeks on end, potentially the 2 train crew, transit officers who attend to deal with the crowds, etc., the response team who have to go and actually deal with the incident and the horrors that ensues, and a myriad of other people, maybe the collector who's also been involved. So that isn't helping matters. It's something that's an ongoing battle. We have in the past had some success. We were driving it down pretty well last year, and it's crept back up again. It's the only way you can tackle this is to manage each case relentlessly, fairly, but relentlessly to closure. Gemma and Megan, would you like to add to that at all?
So the only thing that I would add to that, Andy, is that we too share the concerns about the rate that we've seen rise as of late. So we have actually scheduled a session with the executive team next Wednesday, HR and the team, to delve into the specifics and see what we can do to hopefully lower that rate.
Rest assured, it gets discussed at my exec team on a regular basis. It's something that we're determined to crack.
So I guess one follow-up from that is, if you go to a single operator per train, would you expect absenteeism to go down as a percentage of the workforce?
I
To
don't
improve.
I wouldn't have said there's a correlation to that. I mean, the only point I was making in terms of operators was they are particularly vulnerable to these horrible incidents that seem to be occurring more regularly. Interestingly, not just on our railway, but also on GO.
Okay. Next question, mean distance between failures for new streetcar. Where did the 36,000 kilometer target number, where does that come from? And why are we so far from it?
Guys, can you help me out here on the original provenance? I think it was seen to be realistic given that it's new equipment. We'll get there, but initially, as I said, the divisor is somewhat misleading. Rick?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Steve Lamb and I were talking about this about a week ago, and he advised me that when they were putting the specification together, they actually worked with the industry to determine what the proper KPI should be for mean distance between failure.
It's from the manufacturer? Industry. The industry, okay. And then the last one, and then why are we so far from it? I think it's 5,000 kilometers versus 36,000 kilometers.
We are far, but I think Andy touched on it a little earlier. You really need a bigger sample size and really get some significant distance on these vehicles to flesh out the cutting of the teeth, as we call it. I know right now we're about 8,000 kilometers. The real key to us right now, and again, Andy mentioned it, we know in the last 2 weeks the number of failures was in the 16 to 17 item, where you get 10 or 11% of those were doors. So now we're working on some of the systems of the doors, and we'll get there.
Okay. And then the last one is escalators. We're well above target there as well for failures availability, I think. We were below target, pardon me, due to more frequent electrical failures than normal. Do we have an idea why?
I'll ask Mike to talk to that, please.
Commissioner, I don't have an answer for you, but I'll come back to you on it.
Okay.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Fragadakis?
I'm not sure if the buttons to question are work, but
No,
You just have to
it's just
wave your hand?
I'm taking a list.
okay, right. So my questions relate to page 27 and 29 of the presentation, in particular around the delay incidents on line 1 and line 2. So I noticed that the Bloor-Danforth line, the line is pretty steady year over year, while it looks like it's somewhere in the vicinity of about 2,500, which is higher than the delay incidents on line 1, but the trajectory for line 1 year over year is on an upward trend with newer trains versus older trains. So I'm wondering if anyone is concerned about that. I'm a little concerned, and can we get some understanding of why we would have more delays with newer trains than we do with trains that are not nearly as new. In fact, they're quite antiquated on the Bloor-Danforth line. So I'm just wondering about that.
Well, opening comment, and then I'll ask Mike to comment. These are not just train delays, these are all delays, but I'll ask Mike to talk to the detail, please.
Thanks, Andy. Through the chair, for the Toronto Rockets, Commissioner, in period 11, we use a Comet Nova standard, which is a benchmarking standard between 35 metros around the world, where we measure delays over 5 minutes for rolling stock. So in period 11 for the Rockets, we achieved 594,000 kilometres between a service-affecting failure of 5 minutes or more. For period 12, because I can look into my crystal ball, we actually make 758,000 kilometres between failures. On the and that was 5 incidents of 5 minutes or more, 3 for passenger doors, which we're doing a mod, 1 for the cab door, which we're doing a mod, and 1 propulsion inverter, which is a bit of unusual one for traction on a new train. For the T1s on BD, we achieved 366,000 kilometres between failures in period 11. So there were 8 incidents, 7 for passenger doors. This is generally where people charge the doors and put them off for runners or damage the door on the T1s, and we had 1 for brakes. So we have a number of modifications going on an ongoing basis, which include door overhauls, pocket guys, master controllers, brake control units, propulsion, cab doors, passenger doors between the 2 stops.
So sorry, I'm going to interrupt you just a second. So this graph, the number, it is actually combined for all reasons about why there are delays on the system. Is that correct?
No, sorry, I was referring specifically to the reliability of Toronto Rockets versus T1s and the variability between periods.
Okay. You're right. Okay, yeah, okay, so you're specifically speaking to the subway cars, but I'm just asking, are these delay incidents, the number, it's not just about the actual subway, it's about all delays on the line. Is that correct?
Yes, through the chair. So if you take BD, which I believe you're asking about, in 2016 we had a total of 10,122 incidents on the line, which is a reduction, in fact, over 2015 of 2.3%, whilst on YUS we had a total of 8,092 incidents, which is an increase of 1.7% over 2015.
So how many of these delay incidents on the Bloor-Danforth line are actually car-related?
In 2016, we had 698 rolling stock incidents, which is actually a reduction of 13.5%. So it's down from 807 in 2015 to 698 in 2016.
So it's a quarter, essentially, of the delay incidents on Bloor-Danforth are related to the cars?
No, we had a total of 10,122 incidents, and 698 of those were down to rolling stock. So
Okay,
about
but
6%.
This number seems to be, based on what I'm looking at, somewhere in the vicinity of 2,500.
You may be, well,
So these are the incidents here, right?
Delay incidents, Commissioner, is around 2,500. That was for the 3rd quarter, that's correct.
yeah.
For 2016, you're absolutely bang on.
And for the full year, it's 10,122 incidents on BD.
Oh, I'm only looking up to the 3rd. Like, I'm just looking at this graph here that shows year over year. For 2016, it only has 3/4 of the year. I'm just trying to understand how much it relates, how much of the delays are actually related to the stock
So for the full year, because...
on the 2 lines.
Yeah, I appreciate that,
Sorry, it's
Commissioner.
taken a while to get to that
No, it's
question.
because the report refers to period 11, up to period 11, and I can give you the full year statistics, which includes period 12.
I know, and which is great, but I don't actually have that graph, so I only have a portion of the graph.
Okay, so
So can you just, what's the percentage, line 1, line 2, for stock?
So
What
we would-
is the reason for how many of the delays on line 1 are related to stock? How many of the delays are related to stock on the Bloor-Danforth line? In 2016 versus 2015 for both lines.
So looking at the stats, it's about 6% for BD, where it's just for rolling stock as opposed to other equipment on the trains like
Which
radial
year?
speed control. This is for 2016.
And in 2015 on the Bloor-Danforth line?
On 2015, we had 807 incidents as a percentage of 10,359. So that's slightly higher in 2015 than over 2016.
So I didn't hear the percentage for 2015.
I haven't got the percentage, I've just got the full figure and the percentage of rolling stock failures as a
Okay,
total of that.
Well, maybe we can chat offline then on that one. What about line 1, or we do have to, we can chat offline about those numbers?
So in YUS, I think it's improved. We had a total of 8,092 incidents, and 314 of those were down to rolling stock for the whole year. I can't use my calculator fast enough, but I'll give you a percentage after, Commissioner, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, my question was related to, like, if we have newer stock on the Young University Spadina line, and we have older stock on the Bloor Danforth line, lines 1 and 2, you know, if they're newer and there's more, and they seem to be on an upward trend, but then I understand that this is not entirely, this whole graph is not entirely based on stock. It's all delays across all the reasons.
Yeah, so Commissioner, we do break down just by the train itself, but there are subsystems on the train which drag that figure down, so signalling equipment. But it's fair to say that the rockets as a newer train are more reliable, and the T1s on BD are becoming less reliable and more expensive to maintain, with an increasingly intrusive maintenance regime to keep them going. We're about 18 years old.
Great, thank you very much.
Other questions before we go back to Commissioners Mihevc and Campbell? Commissioner Crisanti? And sorry, because the clocks aren't working, I'll kind of be generous with your time, but just be mindful, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I was just looking at the projected ridership. So the actual ridership for 2016 was 538, is that correct?
Right.
And how did, and our projected numbers were?
Originally, we were projecting 555 million for the year. That was a stretch target that was subsequently reduced because we could see fairly early into the year, certainly by the summer, that we were not going to meet that. So we thought we were predicting, actually, we would come in at around 540 million. The final year-end figure was 538.
538 is to the end of December?
That's correct.
And we projected 555. You adjusted that to 540?
That's right.
And actuals compared year over year?
That's right. I understand.
So compared to 2015?
So in 2015, we were around 538 as well, but that included a bump of about 3 or 4 million for the Pan Am Games. So we ended up about a little less than 1% higher than the comparable period last year. And as Andy said, our budget started at 555. That was before the fare increase. We included the fare increase. We anticipated that there would be a dampening effect on ridership. So the actual budget for 2016 was 553, and we ended up at 538.
And how do we arrive at, how do we arrive at the 555 to begin with? What were we predicting that would happen to?
So when we went back in establishing the 2016 budget, we had several things. We looked at the 2015 results, and they were done earlier in 2015, so sort of midsummer information. We had a fare increase on MetroPass, and then we increased the multiples. So midway through the year, we were doing pretty good in 2015. In the latter part of the year, 2015 dampened, but we did not go back and change the 2016 budget based on the poor results at the end of 2015. The other thing that happened was we started off with a really pretty bad January, February, and March for the weather last year. That hit us a lot. So we did, as Andy says, we knew early on there was a problem. Now, we also assumed somewhere between 1% and 2% growth over 2015, but we had rolled out a whole bunch of transit initiatives in terms of improved service in 2015 and 2016, so we were expecting some quick take-up on those, and it looks like some of those are taking a little longer for those services to sort of result in big ridership. But, so what we did have, and when I say MetroPass is lower, what happens with MetroPass, if somebody decides they're not buying a MetroPass, the pass is priced at about 50 adult rides, but MetroPass users take on average about 75. Mm-hmm. So if somebody switches from a MetroPass to tickets and tokens, you lose whatever they go from 50 down to 40 or whatever in terms of the weekday rides, but you also lose that bump up.
Okay, so just final question. Do we typically budget based on actual, or do you predict increase in ridership year to year?
So when we budget, we will base it on a whole bunch of things. We'll look at the previous year's projection at that point in time, like even the 2017 budget was based on ridership
as we thought it was partway through the year, so it's not based on actual. We look at economic factors like employment projections, we look at retail trade projections, we look at trends in our MetroPass, we look at the prices we're putting in there, look at the service we're putting out. So we build all those economic factors into it. We look at the price of gasoline, for example, the price of parking, and we come up with a projection. So 2017, the 545 is not,
Just going to ask you that.
it's not exactly the budget for, it's not based on the actual, it's not solely based on the actuals for last year, it's based on that, and we are assuming about a little over 1% growth, because we were clocking at 540, and we set 2017 at 545, so now we end up at 538. So we were looking at 5 million growth, now we kind of have to get a 7 million growth to match that. So it's a little tougher now than it looked like it was going to be earlier in the year.
So you're still at 545 for 7?
So the budget right now that's going through City Council is assuming 545 million for TTC.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. The clocks they've set me up, so they're working now. Before we go back to our first rounders, any new questions? So we'll go Commissioner Campbell to Mihevik again.
Just a question in regard to lost time to injuries. Do we know, we must know, where do the injuries most often occur? And do we ever do a report on the implications to the system from a financial standpoint?
General Megan, could you take that, please?
Do their injuries, I don't know where the injuries occur.
Well, these guys are considering their answer. We do know where they occur. It is tracked because we look to see who incurs an injury, why they incurred it, and how and where they incurred it. So again, back to my previous answer, where we each of these KPIs
right.
has granular detail.
Right.
That is something that we look at. We're bound to do that because injuries to staff are important.
So I guess as a commissioner, I'd like to know, so where are the injuries occurring and what are we doing to bring that number down?
Right. Okay. So, pardon? John, would you like to take that, please? John's the Chief Safety Officer.
Yeah, the largest percentage of the employee injuries occur in the service delivery group. So a number of them occur through interactions with customers. We've broken out the causes of injuries and established what are the trends over the last year. So there's 3 particular areas where we've seen a significant growth in the number of injuries. One is assaults, another is chemical exposures, and the third is contact with. This is where an employee bumps into something. So, we've done a lot of work in assaults and continue to. I know my colleagues in special constables have developed a new program right now called Bus Stop, in which they're going to have more ride-alongs, more uniform presence on buses to dampen down the number of assaults.
Are most of those assaults occurring on buses?
Buses and streetcars, but yeah,
Okay.
the majority in buses because there's so many more buses, right? There's
Right.
2,000 buses and 250 streetcars. So that's where they're going. Just to say it, the focus we have had in the commission has really been on controlling the most severe type of injuries, the types of injuries that could result in a fatality. So we've been focused on things like confined space entry, lockout, tagout, fall from heights. The frequency injuries are inherently less serious. So they're things like slips, trips, and falls.
But they do result in lost work time.
Yes.
Right.
So in 2017, we plan to turn our attention to developing an ergonomics program, which would, in essence, have management look at all the different types of jobs depending on the frequency of injuries and develop controls so we have a better man-machine interface and do that in a programmatic way. That'll take several years to complete, I would expect. But
What are the chemical injuries?
a lot of it is exposure to exhaust.
Exhaust.
That'd be the main one, I think.
Okay.
So
And when somebody's off injured, how are they compensated?
through workers' compensation or workplace safety insurance board.
And does that kick in at day one?
The first full day of loss, the day one, the day of the injury, they're paid salary. Subsequently, the claim will be adjudicated by the Workplace Safety Insurance Board. They will determine whether it's a valid claim or not, and if it is, then it'll be paid.
What other associated costs are there to the TTC if somebody's, broken an ankle or been punched in the face? And aside from bringing in somebody new, do we have a way of measuring the cost to the system of all of these injuries?
Yes, TTC is a member of what's known as Schedule 2 for WSIB. And essentially what that is, it's a WSIB acts as the administrator of our program and passes the cost 100% through to us plus an administration fee. So all of the health care, for example, would be paid for by TTC rather than by OHIP. As you mentioned, the replacement costs, whatever training there would take to be for that replacement worker.
So I don't get it. So workman's compensation pays the worker, but then we have to pay them workman's compensation? Is that what you said?
Yes, it's an administrative services contract rather than an insurance contract.
So when a worker is off injured, it's a real cost to the TTC. We're paying their full wage for being injured when they're injured.
Well, it's not a full wage. I believe it's 75%.
Whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But then we're paying for the replacement worker as well.
Absolutely. Okay. So if this is an upward trend, it's a fairly significant burden on the TTC.
Yeah, it's a large cost. Do you know the exact number? I think it's in the range of $9 million a year.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Mihevc.
Yes, thank you. My second question or set of questions is around the delivery of the LRT vehicles. So 40 for this year, 2015. If I do my math, we're into the third week of January. How many have been delivered in January? How many are on property right now?
Rick, still 30, right? There's still 30 at the moment. We've got a schedule from Bombardier that will show. We'll see an additional 40 for a cumulative 70 by the end of the year. But that did not anticipate another one being delivered yet in January.
Ouch. So month by month, can you share with us what that would be month by month?
We can. We don't, unless you got it here today. We don't have it here right now, but we do have a schedule so that every month when we meet with them, we can hold them to that, and that's what I would suggest got us to the point where they knew they dare not miss that 30 by year end.
Okay. So, but well, all things being equal, and obviously you're just telling me they're not equal, that they have their own schedule. We should have had, it's almost one a week, and we're into the third week and we have none. So that means that they are back-ending it. Obviously, that doesn't inspire confidence.
Well, that's the reason why we, as staff, we put out that report some time ago that said we weren't declaring a new delay, but we were saying that there is a risk, actually looking at the bigger picture, that Bombardier will get to a point where it's impossible to stick to the end date, and I've never let them off that. We're still at the moment, we've held them to 204 vehicles by the end of 2019, but if that's immovable, and I'm making it immovable, then the actual production rate gets increasingly difficult as the delays ensue. So back to this year and to your question, the key for us is and we have it by painted number, in other words by unit number, we have a forecast date, but for each vehicle by which they're saying it will be initially what's called PAC'd, which enables it to be released from Thunder Bay, and then FAC'd, which is where we sign it off, money changes hands and it can go into service. So at the moment they're still on track with that, but I get your point. I share that concern.
I'm not going to move motion, but I would find it helpful to for all of us, frankly, to get a memo on what the delivery schedule is for 2017.
We can supply that for you, and I'll take that action.
Okay, thank you.
Could we include that in the next CO's report, just as a more detailed
element? Sure,
element?
That would be
okay.
Just as an informal request. Then my last one is so there's been a lot of discussion in the newspaper, and I'm not debating if Councillor Bearmaker's here, I see him here, the merits of one system or another system, but I have some concerns around process related to, frankly, not just Scarborough's subway, but frankly, all the planning that we're doing. And I'm finding that some of the issues, as to the CEO, seem to be going to the executive committee before they're coming here. And I'm finding that, and I'm just wondering if you could that isn't the way it ever has been, and it shouldn't be. We are an autonomous commission. You work, at the end of the day, you work for us, for this board. That's the way the system is set up. And so I'm just wondering, how are these things happening? Can we anticipate that anything that goes before the executive first comes here?
So I'm crystal clear on who I work for. It is the board, it's not the mayor, and it's not the council, it's the TTC board. I've always been crystal clear on that, and I'm happy to reiterate that publicly today. It's slightly more complex than it used to be because of the increased role of city planning at the early stages of some of these reports. Therefore, they have carriage of some of the reports, but we always stress that we should, as a matter of course, get things before this board, before executive committee, and certainly before council. We haven't always achieved that. We work with the chair's office and, on occasions, the mayor's office to try to make that happen, and we'll redouble our efforts on that.
Well, honestly, so can you assure us, and frankly, I think the answer has to be all reports. They cannot go to the executive before they come here. Can you assure us that any reports on any issues regarding, with respect to planning or operations, that where the executive committee, which actually has a budget function, it doesn't have a planning function, that they come here first?
Where we are the authors, absolutely, I can 100% assure you on that basis. Where we're not the authors, but maybe we have technical input, that becomes more difficult. But I still, I try my damnedest to achieve that. I can't always guarantee it.
Okay, but for our reports, yes.
Yeah.
For reports where you are an input, you give input, but you don't give the final sign-off. I understand that. That's I think, fair game. Okay.
And my only request back to you, if I may, is you as councillors can help me achieve that. The pressure that we're put under sometimes is almost intolerable. So I would ask for your assistance on that. But absolutely, where we're the authors, we will make sure it comes here first. We always have tried to do that, actually.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? I just have one quick follow-up Presto question. I understand when an individual device or machine has failed, we know that's happened. But what happens when the failure is in the communication to tell us that device is offline? So we have stats when we know it's down, and so on certain bus or at a station where it's not collecting or not able to collect fares. How do we know the incidents? And I think those are more maybe the anecdotal ones Commissioner Mihevik is talking about and I hear about all the time, and that the worry is that it's not being read or picked up, so we don't in fact even know the failure exists.
So I think Presto and I share those same worries. One backstop to that is if the communication stuff fails, the readers should still continue to work. They collect taps, they collect that information, they collect the fare, and have enough memory to hold that for about a week until it reconnects again. We've come up with a bunch of different ways to try and use different data sources, both the maintenance management tool that we use to identify failures, matching that with our understanding of how many taps we would expect to get on a bus over a certain period of time. Is it not collecting those? That's another tool. We can do that. Talking to operators and having them call in those faults. So we have 3 or 4 different ways now where we identify those faults to make sure we capture them all.
Okay. And the other question was recognizing that it's still being ironed out in terms of the measurement and I guess the actual dollars and cents, that Metrolinx keeps us whole. I guess 2 questions. One is, has any money come to us to date for what we've missed in terms of fare collection? And maybe I'll just ask that first, then I'll ask the other one.
So no, we are having early discussions with them.
Okay.
So no money has changed hands yet.
And then my other question is, because of the current contractual arrangement where we pay the 5.25% to Metrolinx, is it safe or fair to assume that it won't in fact be, and maybe it doesn't matter, I'm splitting hairs here, it won't be money coming back to us, but we in fact will, our bill to them may be reduced?
So the reality is that they collect the fares and then pay us everything except for the 5.25% because it's all through their clearinghouse.
So whenever that amount is determined, then that will be above and beyond whatever that contractual arrangement calls for. Okay, thank you. And just one final question is, Vice Chair Heisey and I and Commissioner De Laurentiis had the pleasure of bumping into the new President Bombardier yesterday, and I believe that in that casual conversation, they had suggested a certain output rate that they had achieved by the end of 2016, either at a monthly, and it was at 3.5 a month. And does that ring a bell to what you've been told?
Sorry, I wasn't party to that conversation. Are you saying they already have, or that's what they need to meet?
At the end of the year, when they finally got to 30, what were they delivering at? Was it?
Unless, Rick, you know it top of your head, I'd need to look at the schedule to work out the math.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The last 10 vehicles arrived in the last 6 months, and in the last 6 came in the last 2.5 months. So they're working on a schedule now that they'll give them the consistent delivery through 2017, and we're waiting for that new schedule imminently. So.
Okay, thank you. I think I saw some other hands now. Commissioner De Laurentiis and then Commissioner Crisanti.
On the Presto issue, this isn't so much a question as really just a suggestion. I was on the website the other day, and it struck me that the instructions walking people through registering your account, for example, could just be a little more intuitive. So I would just leave that with you you could perhaps get a couple of people who have just recently bought a card and kind of get them to test it. I think it could improve things quite dramatically.
Would you agree? Another question from Commissioner Crisanti.
Yes, thank you. Just quickly, I was just looking at the page 39, the employee absence chart. I'm just a little bit concerned that we've been for well over 2 years in the unfavorable category of, it says 26 to 28 months, and the absenteeism rate has increased over 7%. And it also continues to explain that the focus continues to be placed on actively and systematically managing employees with problematic attendance records. Well, this has been a problem that's been ongoing for quite some time. What are we doing to help correct that? And where do you see this, where do you project this is going to go in the next, say, 6 to 12 months? Is it being managed?
Yes, and you will recall my earlier answer to that. It is absolutely being managed. I hold my managers to account to manage their specific departments. So on a case-by-case basis, we do have performance case management, if you like, for individuals to find out not only what is their ailment or the reason for not being at work, what is the agreed path to get them back to work, but we also look at individuals' absence record. Is there any pattern of absence? Is it that they're often off before or after a long weekend, for example? So we look at individual cases. We also look at generic issues such as, is there a particular cluster in a particular division? Because that might be indicative of the way that division is being managed. Either it's being managed well or maybe it's lax. So I look at a scorecard that shows me which divisions are meeting their target or those that are not. And we also look at the root causes of why people are off. If, for example, there are root causes where people have been assaulted or, as we discussed earlier, priority ones or other factors that cause them to be off. So there's a lot of reasons why people are off. I would just say again that we're actually, may not look like it, we're actually slightly better than the public service average. But it's an ongoing challenge, Commissioner, and one that we're determined to crack. In terms of a forecast, we want to get back below target. That's my aim for this year. Okay. I can't really be more specific than that.
So would it be possible, given that, this has been now problematic for well over 2 years, and to maybe give an interim update on how we're doing with this, say, in 6 months' time?
If that's your desire, absolutely.
Yes, it would be, and if we could just, I don't know, does it need to be a motion or?
I mean, we get an update every month, so I don't know if you just want
to the board.
We get this every month to the board.
So this is updated monthly?
Yes, it is, Commissioner. This is a standing item within, and I'll be happy to comment on it in more detail in my CEO's commentary, if that would suffice.
Could we direct staff just
Yes,
to
please.
flesh it out in an upcoming report?
That'd be helpful, yeah, because this is something that's been ongoing for like well over 2 years, and I think we really got to get a handle on it. All right, thank you.
Other questions? Round 4. Well, I sense when we have a lighter agenda, people really want to dig in on some items. What's that? That would be, if that's a motion, Okay, I'll move to receive the report. All in favor? Carried. ACAT minutes, I've held those. If we were maybe too quick to say goodbye to Mazen, but he'll briefly just highlight the minutes and introduce them for us for our consideration.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. It's me again, my final update, I guess. So these are the highlights from November 24 ACAT minutes. At our service planning subcommittees, we received a presentation from the City of Toronto staff regarding senior strategy project and the development of the next version of the senior strategy, version 2.0. At our design review subcommittee, we reviewed 2 design options considered for the bus terminal of the new Scarborough Centre Station, bus terminal on the Line 2 Scarborough subway extension, and made some recommendations there. And final item is ACAT members expressed concerns regarding the removal of bus schedules information at bus stops, stating that many seniors and people with disabilities rely on these postings as they do not have cell phones to access scheduled information. Removal of this bus schedule from stop poles was also an issue identified by the Customer Liaison Panel members. And finally, the next ACAT meeting is Thursday, January 26, 1 p.m. to 3:30 at 1900 Yonge, 7th floor, and we hope to see you there. And I'm not going to be the chair for that meeting.
But you will be there.
I will be there. Try my best, yes.
Thank you again. Any questions of staff on the minutes in front of us? No? I will move.
Sorry, I've been told that I can announce the new executive.
Oh, yes, that would be great.
Okay, so Debbie Gillespie, to my left here, she is the new ACAT chair for 2017. And on my right, Angela Marley, the vice chair, and also Raymond Delera, the other co-vice chair. So congratulations to the new executive.
Well, with that, I will congratulate the new executive, thank Mazen again, and move approval of the minutes. All in favor? That is passed. Thank you. Item number 8, we have a deputant on this item, and maybe a second one. I don't know if Councillor Ainsley is going to also speak to it, but Miroslav Glavich is here. If you just, yes, please. Yeah, I think. Are you able to speak to 8 and 9 at the same time?
Would that make you happy?
It would make my colleagues very happy.
Okay, yeah, why not?
Thank you.
Just remember, I'm being nice to you when my buses don't come on time. Okay, number 8. Yes, you should make the, wait, 8 is the Durham region, right? Okay. Yes, you should support this, unless you live in Scarborough, unless you live in the Scarborough Town Center is the center of the transit for Scarborough, outside Kennedy Station, but it's Scarborough Town Center. A lot of people there take the GO Transit and Greyhound and that mini bus, whatever it's called, on the east side. Not everybody coming from Durham region goes to downtown, as there's that Lakeshore East Line. For 3 years, ending last year, I worked in Pickering. It would have been nice to go to Scarborough Town Center and take a bus there. The only real connection that I found out is a little rush hour Durham bus to Russell Go Station. But if you're from Scarborough, you know the town center is the Scarborough Center RT Station bus terminal is the center of our universe when it comes to transit. As many people as you should other agencies, maybe in the future, YRTV, but could come into a city center, you never know. I can guarantee you people from Durham do also would like this, an express route, whatever, you know, as long as they get access, have options. And can I go now to number 9?
Sure, yes, please, thank you.
And I don't know if any of you have ever been to the Bluffers Park. It's very nice in Scarborough, unlike the waterfront in center of the city. That's the only thing that there is to go on the waterfront, because the rest is of Scarborough Bluffs. It's a big step, and you need a parachute. The south of Kingston Road is a big sharp hill, has no sidewalks. There's no sidewalks on that, and if you want to go, Councillor Ainsley can drive you there. It's used, and there's 3 parking lots that the bus can turn around. There's 2 loops in there. I go there every day on my birthday with my family, having some lunch in the marina. There's a beach there that's very, very popular. It's the only beach in Scarborough that I can think of. It gets used, but there's absolutely no public transit. In the last few days when we had that freezing rain, it's slippery, and the hill is a very sharp hill. I'm sure a lot of people have slipped and injured themselves. It would be very nice to have an extension of the 12 Kingston or the 21 Bramley bus somehow go there. You people have changed the 12 Kingston bus to go on, I think it's Variety Village instead of, you have changed routes before. It does get used a lot in the summer. I can't say about the winter because I never gone there in the winter, but it gets heavily used in the summer, and it can be a dangerous, slippery hill. That's it.
Thank you very much. Any questions for this deputant? No, thank you. I believe we have another young deputant to join us.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
So sorry, we don't have you on the list, so I just have to move a motion to add you to
Yeah, sorry guys,
the
I
list.
couldn't get the email out fast enough this morning.
Okay, can I have a motion by Vice Chair Heisey to add Emily to the list of, are you speaking on 8 or 9?
Speaking about the Scarborough Town Center.
Are you speaking on item 8 or 9?
8.
Okay, so that's the Durham Region Transit Access?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All in favor? Yeah, to add a deputant. Okay, go ahead, thanks.
Wow, they finally made it slightly accessible. Yay! So I lived in Scarborough. I lived at Progress and Shepherd for a long time, and I lived at Councillor Ainsley's ward. I miss him like crazy, but okay. I go to Durham all the time. In fact, when I lived out in Scarborough, it was easy to get to, it was faster to go to Oshawa on the Pulse than it was to come downtown. Wow. Big thing we need to do to get Durham Region access is the University of Toronto Scarborough campus. To be fair, connecting between TTC and Durham is a frustrating roundabout process when you're in a wheelchair. B, before we bring it into Scarborough Town Center, STC needs to be made accessible. It's death-defying to go between TTC and Go Transit, Metro, and the Megabus because there's no accessibility. None whatsoever. You have to drive along the roadway, risking your life for almost 3/4 of a kilometer, dodging TTC buses rolling in and out. And because STC closed the entranceway that was across from the Go station, it was still death-defying then. But I think we need Durham Region access. Another thing we need to do with Durham Region and any inter-regional transit especially since York Region wants to take back all our northern ends of our routes, is make sure that customers can get on when they want to go southbound, such as at Vic Park, when you need to go to Don Mills Station from, say, Steeles and Vic Park or Sparks Avenue in Vic Park. Sparks Avenue is where there's a lot of people with disabilities like me. That's where our repair place is. I can't get on that bus to go to Don Mills Station. I have to take a roundabout route now because 224 no longer exists. And even getting in from Durham Region can be an absolute show at Port Union because it's unsafe for those who are visually impaired. There's no audible signals properly done. It's really loud. It's really busy. And to have to change from the Shepherd bus to Durham Region at that spot is incredibly dangerous. And of course, Wheel-Trans doesn't go to Durham. Heck, they don't even go to the Accessibility Expo this week except by special measure, and you have to call Wheel-Trans and set on hold for 40 minutes. So getting to Durham is even worse. And to get to the Abilities Center for certain events in Whitby, it would be really nice if TTC and Durham met up better. And that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Questions? No? Thank you very much for your presentation. Our next deputant, I believe, is Councillor Ainsley.
As always.
Scarborough's favorite son, outside of our deputy mayor.
Actually, I'm just going to stand, if that's okay. So, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to be very quick. I'm going to depute on numbers 8 and 9 together as well. I brought both of these forward. I want to thank the chair for bringing them forward on this agenda on my behalf. In terms of item number 8, getting back and forth between Durham and Scarborough. One of the reasons I'm here, I'm a city councillor. My ward, I'm in Ward 43. There's only one ward between myself and the municipality of Pickering. If I go out my front doors, I want to drive to Pickering, I can be there. I can be in the Pickering Town Centre, for example, in 5 minutes. If one of my kids wants to go to the Pickering Town Centre, they walk out to Kingston Road, they get on a bus, they transfer to another, from Kingston Road to Lawrence, they go to the Rouge Hill GO train station, they take the GO train to Durham, and then they take another bus up to the Pickering Town Centre. So you're looking at, my 5-minute car trip for them is anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half by bus. The only real transit connection between Durham and Scarborough otherwise is there's a Durham bus that comes in to the Scarborough, University of Toronto Scarborough. The other option, if you want to get to the Scarborough Town Centre and get on our LRT, or sorry, our SRT, and then on our subway system, is you take a GO bus in from Pickering. So I have I have also, within my ward, I have 4 what are called neighborhood improvement areas. Now, as children, teenagers are looking at more of a regional education system, we have a lot of kids going out to the University of Toronto, or University of Oshawa, sorry. That's a whole different ball game. Just basically getting back and forth across the Scarborough-Durham border, whether you're going into Durham or coming into Scarborough, is a huge obstacle. One of the things that's been requested of me is to look at allowing Durham Transit into the Scarborough Town Centre. Part of my hidden agenda is ultimately, I think I might be back in a few months, because I'm also the chair of the board of directors of the Toronto Zoo. As we're trying to increase attendance at the Toronto Zoo, which has more or less become a Toronto regional zoo, we would like Durham Transit to run into the Toronto Zoo as well. So that's something else that I'm going to be looking at as well. Item number 9, Bluffers Park is probably, other than Woodbine Beach, is probably the most heavily utilized waterfront park anywhere from Mississauga out to Durham. One of the issues that you'll find, and the 2 people before me, or Miroslav more so spoke about, is there's no bus access. I can talk to you for 10 or 15 minutes about everything that you can go and do at Bluffers Park. If you have a car, great, no problem. If you want to walk, if you want to take transit to Bluffers Park, impossible, it doesn't happen. There's 2 bus routes. They both basically stop at the top of Brimley Road. There's the number 12 bus and the Brimley bus. You get off both of those buses if transit is your only option. You walk down a hill that's 2 kilometers in length. It's so steep. We usually dare people to walk back up that hill. If you're in a neighborhood improvement areas, there's 6 of them in Scarborough. your only option is to walk up and down that hill. I've been told off the record, Cardinal Newman Catholic High School, which is at the top of that 2-kilometer climb up and down, one of the teachers was telling me they don't send their gym classes up and down that hill. They know their students will get to the bottom of it. They will have a hard time getting back up that hill. We expect our residents to walk down that hill. No sidewalks. There's ditches on each side of it. That's one of the things I'm working at with the City of Toronto. We expect residents to walk up and down that hill and have a wonderful day with their family and picnic baskets and everything else and their beach toys, and then climb back up that 2-kilometer hill at the end of a very enjoyable day. So I'm here to ask the TTC commissioners to look at putting in some type of bus service, either extending one of the 2 routes or look at some type of shuttle service up and down the hill. But I would like you to both these reports to be referred to staff to look at options of what can be implemented, and then I'll be happy to come back and talk some more about it. Thank you very much.
Great. Do you have if you don't mind sticking around, you have a question from Commissioner Mihevc and maybe Commissioner Fragadakis.
I'll be asking staff, but to my knowledge, I don't think we have a relationship as the TTC with Durham Transit the way we have with Mississauga Transit, York Transit, and I'm not sure about Brampton Transit.
Markham as well.
Do we,
TTC
from your
buses
knowledge?
going to Markham.
We do? Oh, okay. So, you know, given the explosion of population in the East End as much as the West End, would we not want to review, in addition to this, other opportunities in a kind of a package kind of way?
Yeah, I would be more than open to that. As I mentioned, you know, just youth going to school. I was speaking with somebody in the Kingsford Galloway Park area yesterday that was just accepted to university in Oshawa. There's a program that's only offered in Oshawa, and they told me it would probably take them, once they made all the transit connections, it would take them about over 2 hours each way to make a 20-minute car drive.
Commissioner Fragadakis has a question for you.
Thanks. Councillor Inslee, I'm just wondering, you just made a statement sort of towards the end of your deputation around you wanted staff to comment on this or have it referred to staff, but your recommendations are actually not referrals. So did you want us to refer them to staff?
I think, you know, if you would like to approve a bus route this afternoon in a Bluffers Park, that would be great. I know that you have a capital plan and an operational plan that I think staff would like to find the best option to have a bus in a Bluffers Park, and maybe to explore different options back and forth across Durham. But I'd be more than happy to go to my residents and say the TTC today.
You came and you got it right away approved. Okay.
I believe Commissioner Mihevc has some motions to
refer, okay. Because I was going to move a referral of them. Although I do like number 9, and I think we should have transit to Bluffers Park, because I'm kind of curious, how many, do you have any sense of the volume of Torontonians that are going out to Durham that would benefit from this service, rather than the people from Durham coming in, jamming up the system, riding it all the way along, so that the people, for example, in Ward 29 who can't get on at Broadview just to get to Yonge Station, can't get on the system? I mean, do you have a sense of those numbers, of how many people are going from Toronto to Pickering or Oshawa?
I don't have actual numbers. I can tell you the number of complaints that I get on a regular basis from people that would like to work in Durham, and their number one hurdle, if they don't own a car, as I said, I have 4 neighborhood improvements in my area. Number one complaint that I get is people that have been offered employment in Durham and not being able to get to it successfully. I've had people have actually turned down jobs in Durham and taken them in Markham because it's a 2-bus trip from my community up into Markham.
Okay, well, I would be interested in getting that information from staff. Thanks, though.
Thank you. Other questions from Commissioner Campbell and Vice Chair Heisey?
So in regard to number 8, isn't this a rather unusual means by which Durham Region wants to express its interest in accessing a hub at the Scarborough Town Centre? Why wouldn't they just go directly to the head of the TTC?
I know from what I've been told by staff in Durham was they've tried that avenue before, and some of the previous commissioners kiboshed it. So they're back here asking.
That sounds like a sketchy story, no offense, but.
It's Scarborough.
I don't want to name.
No, it's not Scarborough, it's Durham. I just don't understand why they wouldn't approach Mr. Bai
We've got
for,
a proactive local councillor who's trying
yes,
to take
anyway.
charge.
And I'm more interested in getting people out to Durham. The buses have to go, they have to come back, so I'm sure they would be happy to bring people both ways.
Okay, thank you.
If we can reach some type of reciprocal agreement where we can run TTC buses out to Durham, I'm sure they wouldn't mind that either.
Right, well, I mean, this is the arrangement we have with Mississauga, with all the buses coming along. And incidentally, the buses that come, just so you know, well, no, I have to frame this as a question. Are you aware that the buses that enter Etobicoke via Mississauga do not necessarily garner a lot of goodwill, so among the residents of Etobicoke? So just be careful what you wish for. Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
I guess the
Now you're
people
aware
that
of
live
it.
in Scarborough sometimes are a little more congenial than.
Maybe that's true, yes.
Vice Chair
not.
Heisey with question for the deputant.
So, Councillor Ainsley, whose seat I am in fact sitting in, would you be satisfied with a resolution where the TTC would approach directly Durham Transit and ask them if they have an interest in these ideas? And I'd add the Metro Zoo as well, the Toronto Zoo, and the service to the Scarborough Town Centre.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that. I think I think the residents in my area getting out to Durham, I don't think they really care how it gets done, as long as it gets done.
Okay, I've been to Bluffers Park. I took my Toronto Harbour license course there at the marina. It is a long way down the hill. And it reminds me a little bit of Cherry Beach in terms of its inaccessibility to the community. And as I recall, and this I think is a question to staff, I think Cherry Street Beach.
Let's save that for questions to staff.
Save that for later, okay.
Yeah.
So you're not looking for a year-round service to Bluffers, are you? Aren't you looking for a seasonal service?
I'm open, as I said, I'm open to anything. The priority for Bluffers Park, more people often than not use it from May to October.
Okay, thanks.
And thank you for taking good care of my seat, Commissioner Heisey.
Other questions of this deputant? Thank you, Councillor Ainsley, for
Thank you very much, everyone, for your time.
giving us the rare opportunity to talk about transit in Scarborough. So while the deputants were kind enough to combine 8 and 9, we're on item number 8. Are there questions of staff on 8? So yes,
Could you
Commissioner
do
Mihevc.
just a quick state of the nation on the relationship between TTC and the region of Durham on the transit file?
So at staff level, it's very positive. I work with their CEO, their GM quite regularly, Vincent, and we have been working on some options for these things over the last year or so. The one constraint at this moment is Scarborough Centre right now, in terms of the number of buses that serve it and the number of bus bays it have, is already beyond capacity. So it's one of the challenges, how do we actually get more buses in there? But we've been working on this for a little while.
So do we have, how many of our buses go there and how many of their buses come to us?
So our buses don't cross the boundary, the intersection point between Durham Regional Transit and the routes that we serve. There's a transfer point at Scarborough, at University of Toronto Scarborough. Their buses come in as far west as there, and then somebody that wants to carry on transfers onto one of our buses.
So some encouragement and rethinking.
We are always happy to look at these things.
Okay, great. Okay, that's it.
Other questions of staff to speak? Commissioner Mihevc has a motion on number 8. Do you want to just read it out? Well,
It's just refer this item to staff, so refer number 8 to staff with a further request to report on other cross-border opportunities for service enhancement.
okay. Question of the mover by Vice Chair Heisey.
Could we accept as a friendly amendment in particular the Toronto Zoo and the Scarborough Town Centre?
Including the Toronto Zoo, including the Scarborough
So that's
Town
a
Centre.
friendly amendment.
But not including a subway to Durham.
No?
No.
How about Councillor Ainsley's front door?
All in favor of the motion as it was just amended? Opposed? No. That carries. Thank you very much. So item number 9 we're on. Questions to staff on the second item, put before us. Vice Chair Heisey has questions.
So the Cherry Street Beach Service, which I think is bus 172, I recollect that it is, because I go down Cherry a lot at various times of the year, that I think there's a seasonal component to that service to get you to the beach. Is that correct? And I'm not suggesting that that would be where we end on Bluffers, because I think that's too early, but do we run seasonal services? I guess is the first question.
Yes, we do run seasonal services.
Okay.
I believe Commissioner Mihevc has a motion for number 9. Unless anyone else wants to speak to it, I'll let him make that motion, which is up on the screen so he can read it there.
Sure.
That's the one. All in favor of referring this item to for staff to report back to the board? Opposed? None. Okay, that carries. Thank you. And we're on to item number 10, which is the subway closure plan and review for 2017. And there is a presentation for that.
Okay, Commissioners, just by way of introduction, it'll be our Acting Deputy Chief Operating Officer, Jim Ross, who's going to do the presentation, and I will pass over to him.
Oh, that,
On
I
the
saw
subway
that.
closures, oh man.
Just if you want to make sure your mic's on. Ainsley might have screwed it up.
Good afternoon.
Go ahead, thanks.
Thank you. During this presentation, I'll provide an overview of subway closures that we had in 2016 and describe some of the work that was accomplished during those closures. Is it not up? I'll just wait a second. As I said, during this presentation, I'll provide an overview of the subway closures that we had in 2016, describe some of the work that was accomplished during those closures. I'll also speak to some of the efforts that were undertaken to minimize the impact to TTC customers during those closures. And then I'll go through the closure plan for 2017 and talk a little bit about how we're continuing to focus on the customer experience during these required subway closures. This calendar provides a good overview of the distribution of closures during the course of 2016. Next slide. In summary, we had 36 closures throughout the system in 2016, 15 on Line 1 YUS, 16 on Line 2 BD, 3 on Line 3 SRT, and 2 on Line 4 Shepherd. In 2016, we replaced over 5,000 meters of running rail on Lines 1 and 2. And while all of this is absolutely necessary state of good repair work, I'd like to highlight one particular job that was completed over 2 closure weekends in April, where we replaced 3,000 feet or 900 meters of track in the Kiel to High Park area. Using a fastener system that had never been used at the TTC before, we were able to reduce noise and vibration levels by approximately 20 decibels, or in another way, 8 times improvement than prior to the work being done. And that was a true success story for residents in that area. During 4 closures on the SRT in 2016, we replaced 950 meters of power rail, performed rail grinding along 6.5 kilometers of track, replaced rail ties and fasteners, and did a huge amount of corridor cleaning activities. We have since seen a 69% decrease in fire smoke Plan B delay minutes on that line year over year as compared to 2015. And even with a slight increase in passenger-related incidents, we've still seen a 24% reduction in total delay incidents on Line 3 in 2016. Our ATC and signals crews have been very busy providing critical maintenance to existing signaling equipment to improve resilience on Lines 1 and 2, while continuing to move forward and installing all of the equipment, including 181,000 meters of cable that will be necessary to bring ATC in on Line 1. I think it's also really important to stress just how much work gets done during closures. We're able to take the opportunity provided by the closed stations to replace skylights, clear drains, upgrade electrical infrastructure, install Presto equipment, paint ceilings, perform heavy cleaning work, and get lots of other jobs done to maintain a state of good repair and modernize our system. We understand the impact that closing portions of the subway has on our customers, and we're always looking for ways to minimize that impact. In 2016, we continued to work with our colleagues in transportation services to improve the efficiency of our shuttle buses by adjusting signal timings along shuttle routes and adding functionality to traffic signals where it didn't already exist. We employed Toronto Police paid duty officers where possible to assist our buses to get in and out of our stations and to assist with turns at intersections wherever we could. Also in 2016, we began to work with the city to restrict on-street parking along shuttle bus routes to improve trip times and minimize delays to customers. On-street parking was restricted during 21 closures with impressive results. We were able to improve trip times for customers, provide more reliable headways, and reduce crowding on the shuttle buses. These benefits do, however, have an impact on local businesses, and there is an increase in cost to the TTC for parking enforcement and friendly tows. As I noted, there were impressive improvements in trip times on our shuttle buses, and after restricting parking, we saw 44% faster times on Bloor between Bathurst and Jane, 47% faster times on Danforth and Bloor between Pape and St. George, and 30% faster times on the route between St. George and Lawrence West. For 2017, the TTC is scheduling 35 closures distributed across the network, but again, focused primarily on lines 1 and 2. We will have a total of 20 closures on line 1 YUS, 10 closures on line 2 BD, 4 on line 3 SRT, and 1 closure on line 4 Shepherd. The bulk of these closures on line 1 are to support our ATC resignaling project, with 13 of the 20 closures dedicated to that effort. The remainder of the closures are to support critical state of good repair work necessary to maintain the network. As in past years, we'll continue to find ways to minimize wherever we can the impact that closures have on our customers. We're improving the traction power infrastructure at Broadview Station so that closures that were from Pape to St. George can now be reduced to Broadview to St. George, avoiding the traffic congestion along Danforth Avenue and providing access to streetcar routes downtown if our customers choose to take them. We have developed special operating procedures to take advantage of the track switches currently unused at King Station, reducing a proposed Bloor to St. Andrew closure down to King to St. Andrew, virtually eliminating the need for shuttle buses at all. Lastly, with 11 closures scheduled from St. George to Downsview, we have developed an alternative shuttle bus plan that we believe will get customers where they need to go faster than with a traditional shuttle bus. Of the 13 closures needed for the ATC project, 11 of them are these big St. George to Downsview closures and are required for testing, commissioning, and trial operations of the ATC system. These are the largest planned closures that we have ever undertaken at the TTC, and our focus on the impact to our customers led us to develop an alternative shuttle bus plan. With our traditional shuttle bus strategy of operating buses along or near the subway alignment, we would have operated over 16 kilometers each way through 3 different long-term construction zones, each of which slows the service, resulting in trip times of at least an hour from end to end. We believe there was a better way. By limiting the traditional subway-aligned shuttle from Downsview to Lawrence West Station only, and by increasing the service levels of many of the routes in the area, especially the east-west routes between the Spadina side and the Young side of the line, we can offer most customers a faster journey. In addition to the 20-bus shuttle between Downsview and Lawrence West, we are adding extra vehicles to 9 routes, and our subway service will also run more frequently than regular scheduled, all of which is geared to getting customers where they want to go faster than if they were on a traditional shuttle bus. For example, customers traveling from Downsview to Bloor Young could take over 60 minutes on a typical scheduled shuttle bus, but can expect a 33-minute trip using an extra bus to Shepherd Station and a southbound train. From Lawrence West to Bloor Young, the traditional shuttle bus would take about 45 minutes, while an extra bus to Lawrence Station and a southbound train will get customers there in 28 minutes. To keep those extra buses moving as efficiently as possible, we've also been authorized to restrict on-street parking on portions of Lawrence and Eglinton Avenues. This does represent a significant change in the travel pattern for many of our customers, and our communications staff have worked hard to initiate an unprecedented communication plan that includes information in local and daily newspapers, 800 signs posted in parking lots, passenger drop-offs and stations, a YouTube explainer video, an MLSE email notice to Leafs and Raptors season ticket holders to advise them of the best way to get to the ACC. We are also increasing the customer service staff in our stations so that customers can always get the help they need along the way. While our closure plan for 2017 is ambitious, we are also looking ahead to 2018 and beyond. While we'll continue to focus on our state of good repair, we are also going to have closures that are necessary to support phases 3, 4, and 5 of the ATC project as they work their way along the line towards Finch Station and the project completion in 2019. We should also expect closures at or near Eglinton Station to support construction efforts for Eglinton Crosstown as the Crosstown nears its opening date in 2021. And now at this time, we'd like to share with you the YouTube explainer video on the ATC closure plan and the alternate service.
Exciting changes are coming to the TTC subway system that will modernize and improve service, including an entirely new signal system. But in order to make these changes, the TTC will need to close portions of the subway system on many weekends throughout the year. Signal systems monitor the position of subway trains, allowing for their coordinated movement and informing staff in the TTC's Transit Control Center of each train's location. Today, the TTC uses the original signaling system, which remains safe but dates back in parts to when the subway first opened in 1954. The current system is called a fixed block system. Signals are located along the tracks in predetermined sections called blocks, and only one train at a time can enter each block. The blocks on either side of the train are considered protection zones. Trains must wait for the blocks to clear, leaving large gaps called headway. The fixed block system limits the number of trains that can be operated on one line at the same time. It has become increasingly unreliable, leading to delays. It also doesn't allow for the increase in train capacity that the TTC so desperately needs. The TTC has begun installing automatic train control, or ATC, to replace the old system. ATC creates a moving block for each train, a safe area that moves with the train and adjusts to the train's speed. Computers make multiple calculations a second to determine how large each train's moving block should be and how close trains can safely be to one another, moving more people faster. Trains will be able to operate as frequently as every 1 minute and 55 seconds instead of the current limit of 2.5 minutes. With ATC, subway service will be more efficient and reliable, with less crowding and fewer delays. The move to ATC is essential if the TTC is to keep up with growing ridership demand. When installation is complete on the entire line in 2019, it will allow for as much as 25% more capacity. Good news for the increasing number of riders the TTC sees each year. ATC will come online on all of Line 1 in phases by the end of 2019, starting with the portion of Line 1 between Spadina and Wilson stations, and with the Line 1 subway extension into York Region that opens at the end of this year. In order to introduce ATC to the subway extension, as well as between Spadina and Wilson stations, it needs to be tested extensively. Testing is done in phases and needs time to address any issues or challenges that arise. It will be necessary to close the section of Line 1 between Downsview and St. George stations on numerous weekends throughout 2017 to complete installation, training, and testing. Weekends are chosen because there simply isn't enough time during routine nighttime maintenance to complete the work. More work is completed in 1 weekend closure than 5 weeks of routine nighttime maintenance. For 2017 subway closures, the TTC is changing the way it moves people. In addition to running shuttle buses through a section of the closure area, it is introducing enhanced closure service that will speed up travel times. During the closures, the TTC will add extra service on all east-west routes that run between the Spadina side of Line 1 to the Yonge side. Customers can use these routes to get to the nearest subway station on the Yonge portion of Line 1, making their trip to and from the downtown much faster. For example, if a customer needs to get from Downsview Station to the Eaton Centre, they can take one of the more frequent 84 Shepherd buses from Downsview to Shepherd Station, and then travel south to Dundas Station. Train service will also be increased between Finch and Bloor-Yonge stations to accommodate the additional ridership. For those customers who are only traveling north-south within the closure area, shuttle buses will run between Downsview and Lawrence West stations. Anyone traveling within the closure area south of Lawrence West Station will have several bus routes available to them with extra service. To plan your trip using alternate routes, please visit ttc.ca. The TTC recognizes closures are inconvenient. However, once ATC installation is complete, a much improved subway service will be the result. During subway closures, the TTC will have customer service staff at all affected stations to help customers with information and ensure they make their connections seamlessly. Closure schedules and shuttle bus routings are published well in advance at ttc.ca, or follow us on Twitter for up-to-the-minute service information.
I can now take any questions that you might have on the closure plan or on the ATC project.
Great, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll have lots of questions, starting with Commissioner Mihevc, then Lalonde.
As one of the councillors on this route, wearing my councillor hat, I just see a lot of phone calls and a lot of pain. So my questions are, and you know what I'll have to defend to the public, will be that these are essential, absolutely essential, and that you've done everything in your power, our power as TTC, to minimize the number of weekend closures. So that frankly will be my question is, if we were to say to you, look, you ain't getting 35, you're getting 25 weekends. And if you have to bring people in on overtime, or if you have to contract out certain pieces, you got 25 weeks, or 25 weekends, or 20 weekends. What would your response be?
So for the ATC closures are absolutely necessary to test, commission, and trial that system. The balance of those closures, the downside to not doing important track work is that we can expect restricted speed zones for much longer. So if a job that would take a weekend to replace track ends up taking 5 weeks, then during that 5-week period, customers traveling that portion of the line could expect to have a 10 or 15K restricted speed zone in for maybe 1,000 feet of track.
That's line 2, right? That's the line 2 work?
In general terms, Commissioner, anywhere that we would do a rail replacement.
Sorry, okay, so, sorry, I just want to be
restricted speed zones would begin to pile up.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that part, and, you know, I'm not suggesting going back to that. But is it possible to, when you're doing track work, to have multiple teams on, and rather than have 2 weekends of smaller teams, 1 huge weekend with 2 teams working in 2 areas and just getting a bigger section done at the same time?
Sir, may I answer that, please?
Sure.
The answer is no, because you have diminishing returns in the closure. We have a finite number of staff. We have a finite number of work cars. If you put too many staff in, they get in the way of each other. And you actually have to do the work in a very staged way, removing all the old equipment, clearing the drains, and then you rebuild it back up. And each of those is specialised. So merely adding more people or extending the time doesn't necessarily give you the productivity that you would hope for.
Okay, I just do my due diligence, I guess.
I will also be fielding those calls.
Yes.
Commissioner Lalonde.
Yeah, I'm curious looking forward into 18 and 19. Have we done any forecasting of what kind of closures we'll need then? Because it seems to me that we've had a lot of closures to get this far on ATC, and there's a lot more ATC to come in the rest of Line 1. And I'm wondering if the closure rates are going to accelerate in 18 and 19, or can we expect kind of more of the same during that period?
Sir, through the chair, 2018 and 2019 will be about the same number of closures. The area closed will shift from being on the University Spadina side down into the central core and then up onto the North Young side. By the end of 2019, Line 1 YUS will be fully resignalled, and then the number of closures will reduce until we start doing the installation on Line 2 BD. The actual number of closures is less than it would have been had we carried on the original resignalling. As you know, we terminated Ansaldo mutually in January of 2015, and as a result, there are now fewer closures for ATC than there would have been had we carried on with the original system architecture.
Other questions? Vice Chair Heisey?
So if you look at when the closures are, they are all on Saturdays and Sundays with the occasional holiday Monday. At least that's my read of the 2016-2017 plan. And I find it odd that I presume that's to reflect the needs of our customers because our peak travel times are Monday to Friday. Is that sort of the summary?
Through the chair, I would say it suits the city and the commission for us to do the work at weekend when numbers are lower.
Okay.
It doesn't suit Alstom as our signalling supplier or the TTC to do this work during the week. This is hardware and software. You can't rush for work. It's safety critical, SIL 4, safety integrity level 4, fail-safe signalling equipment, and you can only test in incremental layers as you build up confidence in the safety of a system.
So, and I asked you this outside of the meeting, but I thought it was worthwhile asking now. Why can't we add, for example, a Friday on a holiday weekend when a lot of people close down operation or go on holiday to extend the time of single closures so we have fewer closures? Could you comment on that opportunity or whether there is no opportunity out of that?
So through the chair, if Jim goes back to the calendars for 2016 and 2017 on the presentation, you will see that we use some long weekends to do the work. There were 2 this year which we go to the city for the PEV. On these weekend closures, there is a finite amount of work you can do before you have to press stop and then spend the next 4 weeks evaluating your test results, doing software patches, testing your new solution, and then safety validating it. And therefore, merely adding longer closures doesn't necessarily make you more productive. For the ATC closures in particular, so you can see, if you go to the 2017, Jim, please, you can see the ATC closures, which are broadly some of the early yellow ones, which start this month, are spaced 4 weeks apart deliberately, in that you can't accelerate writing the safety critical signalling software, and you have to have this reasonable amount of time between closures to do the work in between. As Andy indicated earlier, this weekend is our first closure for the testing of software in phase 1 using the opening software for September this year. So this is a big milestone for us this weekend where we get the first feel on how good the Alstom software is.
Commissioner Fragadakis.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So I notice with great interest that you're closing on Easter weekend and Thanksgiving weekend. I mean, I appreciate that you have to close to do work, and it makes sense to not have to, to be able to save time, but, I mean, people go to church, people do things on those weekends, like, we had the closure, I believe it was during the Greek Easter this past year in 2016, and my office got a lot of complaints about it. I mean, we had lots of other closures on the Bloor Danforth line, but I'm just wondering about those closures. Like, is there any consideration to do that work at another time and not during those closures?
So,
I mean, I realize you have to stage a lot of work, but...
So if you go back to the 2016 closures, please, Jim. Commissioner, the 3-day closures on BD are regrettable. They were primarily closures for the city to do extended work on the PEV, the Prince Edward Viaduct.
No, I knew what that was.
The key thing about the third day is it's pure extra time because you have no additional setup or takedown time for the third day. If we didn't use those weekends, we would close for more weekends of the year.
I mean, if I might just add to that, Commissioner, I mean, we totally get it, right? And we don't want to do this. This is why the video said that, we recognise the inconvenience. But the line I've been using, which I genuinely believe, it will be worth the pain. And the simple fact is, this is a world city, so there's events on, or there's some kind of reason not to shut every weekend. So you've got to squeeze it in, and we take the view that you equally get lots of complaints, and rightly so, and understandably so, about lack of reliability. So unless and until we bite the bullet, and that does mean for a few years while we put right decades of underinvestment, replace critical infrastructure, and do more than that, actually increase the system capacity and reliability by overlaying automatic train control, and we won't forget Line 2. My view would be that that outweighs the inconvenience of not being unable to get anywhere, because we still will run shuttle buses, but that outweighs that inconvenience. So London pursued a similar debate and in the end concluded the only way to upgrade the tube was to do it via closures, and that Londoners have come to accept, and the tube works exponentially better now because of it, rather than doing it over a decade.
So in the longer term, it's better for transit users.
Without question it is. New York City Transit, albeit they have the advantage of 4 tracking, if only we had that, they do this as well. Increasingly, they do closures so that you can get more work done more efficiently.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Other questions? Other questions? I have a few. I understand the rationale of moving to the east-west shuttle buses. Well, if I wear my counselor hat, like Commissioner Mahevik, on Lawrence, and then especially Eglinton, it's just such a challenge right now. My counter to that is and maybe I'm selfishly saying this because I live close to Bathurst, but the shuttles on Bathurst seem like really convenient and amazing when they're in place, running in place of the university line. Do we have a sense of how that will shake down and comparing each solution to the other?
We have added 10 articulated buses to that route for the closure weekend. So there were 10 additional 7 Bathursts that are running the entire length of the route to augment service that is going north and south. So
but will those
it's not just the east-west routes that have been augmented. There's 10 extra buses on Bathurst. In addition, we have what we call run-as-directed buses, and we have 8 of those, which are waiting to assist, especially because this is our first weekend of doing this model, and we'll apply those wherever we need to.
And so the buses you'd be adding on Bathurst are just to the regular 7 routing, but not the express version that I've seen there in the past?
All of the buses that we're adding are extra buses, but none of them are expressing. So what we thought was that it's inconvenient enough if you can imagine, and it is January. I know that the weather doesn't feel like it, but it is January, so we didn't want buses bypassing customers that were waiting at bus stops just because they were an express shuttle bus, especially on the east-west routes. But the 7 the extra 7 service we think will decrease the headways and without adding too much congestion to what's already congested.
Okay. And I guess just as a follow-up to that, I'm assuming that we're going to learn a lot with our first closure, and we may be hearing about adjustments you make. And an example could be that, Express makes more sense than just augmenting to adding to the regular routing. Is that fair to assume?
That is fair. That we're going to do a full debrief. So many senior staff are in this weekend, including myself, just to make sure that everything is going well. We're going to have a full debrief on Monday morning to see what went well and what kind of lessons that we can take away from the weekend. As well, we're going to be pretty agile during the weekend. So if something's really not working well, then we'll take steps to correct that as best we can throughout the weekend.
Okay. How in terms of Eglinton, what's the level of coordination and communication between the TTC and Metrolinx and their constructor Crosslinks based on how they're staging around station construction zones, what work they're planning for the same weekends where we're doing closures?
TTC closures and diversion staff attend monthly meetings with the mayor and other city stakeholders, but also with Metrolinx and Crosstown Solutions to talk about where they're going to be putting up hoarding, where they're going to be reducing lanes, things of that nature. So we work fairly closely with them and adjust our service as best we can around them.
Okay, thanks. The other question, and I know this is the one we get hammered about the most, and I'm 100% a believer that we have to do this now because we've been waiting for 40 years to do it. But what I will often get, especially amongst the humans who dwell on Twitter, is how dare we close during a sporting event or a significant celebration in the city. The Leafs are going to be in the Stanley Cup Finals this year, so there's a lot of those issues. Outside of the working group, coordinating closures, how do we take into account scheduling our closures beyond what our capacity is and our work demands with just the ebb and flow of a really busy city?
Again, that coordination happens at a fairly high level with the city. We're aware of when Nuit Blanche is. We're aware of when major sporting events are. And we do our best. However, there is a finite number of weekends, and this is a cosmopolitan city, and we are doing everything that we can to get the work that we need to get done. And this isn't just things that we want to get done. We need to get this work done and schedule around and be as sensitive as you can be to the needs of the city. For example, the closures that we're giving to peer rehab on the Prince Edward Viaduct, which is Easter and Thanksgiving, those are required by the city to be 3-day closures. There is only so many 3-day weekends in the city of Toronto. So those were the ones that we had to settle on. We are doing our best. It's worth noting that probably the weekend, so at least 13 months worth of regular work during the maintenance window was accomplished during those closures that we did in 2016. And some of the work could not have been done in the maintenance window at all. So some of the ATC jobs you just can't do without a closure.
So in 2016 we had 38 planned closures. Is that 38 days?
I apologize. It's 36. There was an error in the original. It was 36.
Okay.
And no, it's not 38 days. So some of the closures are. Some of those closures were. I had a note.
I guess, I don't want to make you run around.
Sorry,
That's not
it's
really the
22. So that breaks down to 22 full weekend closures.
Okay.
There was 2 3-day weekend closures. 7 were single-day closures, and 6 were late openings.
Okay. So I guess the question is we had, obviously it's been much publicized, our ridership that did not grow as much as expected last year. We all have tons of theories, and the public certainly does, and why that is one of the additional reasons why our ridership could be down because of the necessary work that's finally being done on the system in 2016. And if we publicize as well as we do that the subway's going to be closed, people will choose not to take transit at all.
I think I should answer that, and I think there's undoubtedly that has some impact, Chair, that, people, particularly if it's discretionary travel, i.e. they're thinking, well, I might pop downtown, but then I find out that there's a replacement bus on and I just don't want the inconvenience, and you may choose not to travel. So we've tried to factor that into our forecast for this year.
So do we, okay, well, that partly answers my questions. So 2017, we're going to have more. Have we made an effort to quantify, and maybe difficult to quantify who doesn't ride or use the service, but quantify the dollar financial impact for us in 2017 with a closure program like the one that's been presented to us? Or is that just reflected in our ridership target that we've seen?
Yeah, so when we set our ridership target, we build that in. We think it's possibly maybe 500,000 rides, or maybe $1 million, something in that order.
Okay, so there is a real cost to.
Yeah, it's not easy to sort of figure out exactly what it is, but if you look at comparable weeks before and after and where the closure happens, we have, we can kind of get a sense of it's something, probably in that order for this number of closures.
Okay, thank you. To speak on this? Anyone to speak? I'll just briefly move the staff recommendation, which is, I think we're just receiving this for information, but just to say no one likes to close the system at all, but when it has been neglected for as long as it has, I commend both this board and the team here at the TTC for taking such proactive actions to finally get this underhand and to make sure that we're doing the work now that should have been done decades ago, that is being done now to make sure that the system will be safer, more reliable, and can serve more people. So I commend everyone for doing that. Some of it will be tough, but it has to be done. And so I've moved that for receipt. All in favor? That carries. Unless there are no other items, a motion to adjourn from Commissioner De Laurentiis. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Mary, don't get used to meetings this short. We trick you on the first one, right? We lure you in with an easy agenda.